is more Doug DeMuro, and today I am going to tell you the story of Cars and Bids, which is my online enthusiast car auction website. How it got started, how it was developed, whatever. A lot of people have been asking me about this. It's the #1 question I'm getting right now from viewers. You know, what's the deal with this? What made you create a car auction website? How has it been going? What's been happening? So today I'm going to cover it. Okay, so first, quick update. I am moving my Cars and Bids market report to the Cars and Bids YouTube channel. So if you want to get my market reports every week or 2 or 3, I don't know, it's not a set scheduled thing, they'll be on the Cars and Bids YouTube channel going forward. I'll be commenting over there about recent sales, car values, prices, basically everything about the sales on the site. The first one is already live, so click the link below to go to the Cars and Bids YouTube channel and see my latest market report. Today, I want to tell you the story of Cars and Bids and give you a little update about how it's going. It's been 2 months since we've launched, the fastest 2 months of my life. I've been so busy. And well, let's go back to when I came up with Cars and Bids last year. Now, anyone who does YouTube for a living, they're always a bit anxious. Maybe the PewDiePies of the world aren't, but guys like me who make good money but not $10 million, we're all a bit worried it's gonna end. And then at that point, we have no marketable skills. We've been making videos about cars for years. There's nothing we can really do. But one change of the algorithm and you forget about me and you start watching Hoovie. Yeah, right, no, I'm kidding. But a lot of YouTubers, they don't operate like this is possible. They're like NFL athletes. They make money, they buy things. They make money, they buy more things. And I guess they just assume it won't run out and it'll last forever. But I'm very careful. And I also think it's important to find opportunities beyond YouTube and not just selling t-shirts or, advertising for alarm systems or watches or video games, but actual sustainable opportunities in case YouTube doesn't last forever, like Cars and Bids. So I was on an airplane to San Antonio last spring to film a video with the McLaren Senna, and the internet wasn't working. And I'm at my most creative when I'm not attached to a connected device. But I'm always attached to a connected device. I'm always, connected and check Twitter, reply to somebody, and check my YouTube views, whatever. But 3 hours on this plane from San Diego to San Antonio, I wasn't connected. And I could have read a book, but I just decided to sit there and think. And within an hour or two, I was sort of watching the Gary Hart movie, and I came up with this idea. Why not a website to sell cars, but just modern enthusiast cars? Just stuff that, people like me are most into, 80s, 90s up, with like a slick interface that's more modern of a website to go along with its modern cars. And just something that's well done. It just sort of hit me. There should be a car selling site for just modern era cars. So I was in San Antonio, and I filmed the Senna, and a couple other cars. I couldn't shake this idea. And I met my best friend in San Antonio, my friend Melissa, who's also my assistant. And I had this craving for the Cheesecake Factory. And so we went to the Cheesecake Factory, I think after I finished the Senna, and we spent like 3 hours there coming up with ideas for what this site would be like. So we were just sitting there, it should have this and it should have this. So shout out to the Cheesecake Factory in La Cantera Mall in San Antonio. You were where Cars and Bids was born, really. So anyway, we come up with this idea, but ultimately, I don't really have the time to do this. I make YouTube videos for 2 channels, and I write and edit articles for AutoTrader, and I'm not about to go launch a website. It's a huge undertaking. But a couple of months pass, and I decide, hey, if I'm gonna get serious about this, I'd better get serious about this. So I reached out to a friend of mine here in San Diego who's in the tech space, sort of the startup world, and I said, hey, here's what I've been thinking about, and from there we were kind of off to the races. He immediately thought it was a good idea. We were able to get some funding from his business to go and develop this idea. And we started a team to create this website. And I gotta say, in all honesty, I had no clue what it would take to do this, what it would take to make something like this. When I created my YouTube channel, I did it all myself. I didn't know anything. I learned how to film. I learned what mics to use. I learned how to edit. I learned what people like through years of trial and error, and I kind of refined the craft, and I did it all. I mean, I didn't have any help, and I didn't ask any, it just happened. The day I started shooting, I didn't know how to operate a camera. And I figured, I could do that here too. Like, oh, I'll just learn to code and I'll create a platform for hundreds of thousands of people to visit every month so we can sell cars. But my friend, now my partner, he made it clear to me, how a business like this actually needs to run. We need a designer to show us how everything would look and to make it look good. And we would need developers to actually make it work, front end, back end. And I was just clueless about this stuff. I really thought I could just do it. And I'm beyond thrilled that we ended up with the team that we did, because as you can see, we have an amazing website and everything works and it looks good and it operates as it's supposed to. And if I had tried to do it myself, I mean, who knows? It would have taken years for one thing, but it would have been a nightmare. And it's just so fortuitous that we ended up with the team that we have, and they put in dedicated effort to make it work. So we came up with a name, and Cars and Bids is supposed to be like quirks and features. It's very simple and Doug-like, not some weird name, Carvana, which I like, but I'm simple, I t-shirt and shorts, Cars and Bids, it's easy. And then we started putting together Cars and Bids. We started this last summer, so like a year ago. And the initial goal was to launch at the end of last year, like December. We pushed that back a bit because we weren't ready, but also because, the end of the year in some climates, not really the best time for car selling excitement. So we pushed it back and we settled on March 1st. And I mean, there was a ton of planning going on at this point. Our designer created these cool logos and this amazing site layout, which has been great. And our development team was working truly nonstop, incredibly long days to make everything look good and work. And it was really quite intense at the start of this year. We were all huffing and puffing to get started on March 1st. And then at the end of February, this little thing called coronavirus comes. Now, you gotta understand, by then it's been a year, basically, since I came up with the idea. And we've been working on Cars and Bids nonstop for maybe 8 or 9 months. And we were literally maybe weeks away from getting to a point where we could launch when coronavirus comes. And then the stock markets plunge. And we're sitting here with a ton of money invested, salaries for people who have been working on the site for years. We're about to launch, and the economy is in its worst turmoil since the Great Depression. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't the best timing for this. But meanwhile, a lot of stuff has already happened to prepare for this. I left my job writing regularly for AutoTrader, which I had done for a decade, to focus on this, to give myself more time to do this. I bought a Kia. I bought my Kia Stinger, even though I didn't announce it until a couple months ago. I bought it in January because I figured we would be launching March 1st, and I wanted to sell my station wagon on the website, so I needed a replacement, so I had the Kia Stinger, a few weeks early. Well, that turned into a few months. And well, now coronavirus is here, and I have an extra car, this website, who knows? So April and May, we keep working just to refine it, to make it a little better. We have no clue. No clue if we're going to be able to do this. Is it going to be launched this spring, this summer, this year? Will coronavirus, by then people started calling it COVID-19, will COVID shrink the car market because people will be working from home and so they won't need cars? And is this whole business plan out the window? I mean, that's the kind of stuff we were thinking about. There was just so many unknowns. Everything was up in the air. We just didn't know. We had no clue what was going to happen next, which obviously is a scenario that was playing out all over the world for business owners. What happens to my restaurant? What happens to my nightclub, my convenience store, whatever? Well, for me, it was what happens to this website that my team has been working on so hard developing for months now. But eventually, cases of COVID sort of started to subside, quite a bit, actually. We decided, hey, while this is happening, we have to get this launched. And early June was the exact date. So we launched on June 8th. And that Sunday, that was a Monday, that Sunday I was terrified. Deeply mortified, terrified, anxious. I could barely speak to my wife. I'm not kidding. We went for a walk around Laguna Beach, which was one of my favorite places, and I couldn't speak. I was so nervous. What if people hate it? What if it doesn't work? I mean, we tested it, but who knows? You test something in test environment, sure, but zillions of people show up, the whole thing might break, change. What if people accuse me of being a sellout? I was really worried about that. And I so hoped people would understand, hey, I'm gonna be advertising this thing now, but this isn't just another watch ad at the start of a video that some YouTuber is getting paid to shill for 5 minutes or whatever. This is my business, which I've worked really hard for. And please understand that but I worried that people would get mad that I was, advertising it. And there's all these fears. You have no idea how it's going to go. I was just so terrified. Just thinking about it brings me back there. And of course, the economy is still in turmoil on top of that. And there's all these protests all over the country. And I was just terrified, pretty much deeply terrified. So that was Sunday, June 7, the fear. We launched the site Monday, June 8. And I mean, it was like we flip a switch. I put out some videos saying the site was live. I'm selling my AMG wagon. And then people start going. There's just people there. It's like those stores on Black Friday where the store is empty and they're opening at 5 a.m. and they open the doors and then there's a flood, a rush of people and you hope for the best. But I was just so nervous. I mean, I was just shaking that morning. Like, is this gonna work? Is anything gonna happen? Is it gonna break? And I still remember the first comments came in and the first bids came in. And I'm like, okay, this is going okay. But still, tens of thousands of people are entering the site every minute, every hour, thousands a minute. And I'm terrified, is it gonna break? That was all I was thinking. Maybe this is how engineers feel when they make a bridge, and on paper it's correct. They've done all the math and everything's good and they've tested it, they've driven over it. But that first day you pull the barricades down and a family drives over going to a picnic, they just assume it's going to work. And that was what we had here. I hoped, but I don't know. So will it? And that was the fear. And quickly, three things became clear. One, people loved the site. Internet people who are notoriously incredibly mean were sending us comments. People we had never talked to before, like, this user interface is amazing, this design, this layout, it's so refreshing, it's so easy to use. And I remember that on day one, that was a huge shock. Like, we had created something that was good, which I always thought, but I mean, it's like a musician, right? And you write a song you think is really good and you play it for people and they hate it, I'm too close to this to know if it's good, but we had validation from people, which was so nice. It was like, wow, this works. They like it. Second thing that became clear was people weren't gonna hate me for this. I was so nervous people were just gonna think, hey, YouTube dude, stay in your lane. Don't do this stuff. I don't want to hear this from you. But I think 99.9% of rational people get it. Like, hey, congratulations for making something cool, for taking this to the next level. Not just car reviews, but now like a car marketplace. And it's well done. And that became clear week one. And I almost never get complaints from people about advertising for Cars and Bids. I think they get it. Hey, a lot of hard work went into this from me and my team. Let's not be a jerk, let's not give him crap for it. And that's shocked me, and it's made me so happy. I really do love my fans and the people. Anyway, the third thing I realized was that we were in serious trouble. So day one, I told my team to expect maybe 30 submissions of people trying to sell their cars. 20, 30, I'd give them some number like that. We had 2 weeks of like my friends' cars that were lined up. And after that, nothing. And so we were just hoping we would get submissions. We honestly thought there was a chance we might get 0 submissions, that people wouldn't want to try out this new site. But I told them 20 or 30 would be good this first week. But secretly, I was thinking, 100 submissions this first week would be great. That's what we want. That would be really amazing. I was told the team 20, 30 to make them feel good if it only was 40. But I was thinking 100. Well, in our first week, we got 722 submissions. Now, here's the thing. When you launch a business and the reception is slow, that's bad. You want people to be into it. But you can ramp up your efforts, change your product, do all this stuff. When you launch a business and you're inundated with users and with requests for your product, that's almost worse, because you're not set up for it. And so all these people are coming thinking they're gonna get this great experience that you've promised them, and you don't have the infrastructure. You just don't. And we didn't have the infrastructure in place to handle, in our case, 722 submissions. So, I mean, myself, my business partner, and the one employee we had hired to write and edit listings, we're sitting there on my patio. We managed the whole first 3 weeks of the site on my patio because we couldn't go into offices due to COVID. We're sitting there on my patio and we're frantically going through car after car, trying to figure out reserve prices. What is this thing worth? Then 10 more come in and you spend a minute on one. Well, 3 more came in during that minute. And it's like, what do we do? And how are we ever gonna write these listings? We're running history reports. I mean, we're desperate. And I'm on the phone that whole week, desperately reaching out to writers who I've worked with in the past to find people who can write auction listings, because we were obviously going to do way more than we ever thought we would. But every minute I'm on the phone trying to hire people is another minute I'm not editing auctions or managing the car submissions or whatever. And I mean, those days were a disaster. I worked until midnight every night those first days just working. And then I would wake up at 4 a.m. panicked because something wasn't working right. We needed to change this. Are the cars, how are they doing? I mean, is the site down? It was... But we got through it. And I mean, at the end of the first week, it was clear we had built a product that people wanted. And I think there was some concern among the people who were working with us, like, hey, is this for real? Like, our investors, is this really gonna be a good business? Like, will this actually work? But after week 1, they didn't really have any more concerns. We were getting thousands of users signing up, not just visiting the site, but signing up, registering to bid, tons of traffic, bids on the cars, hundreds of submissions, and it was crazy. And you know, on Sunday, the business didn't exist. And by Tuesday, we were drowning in it, basically. I mean, it was nuts. But here's the thing. Everyone else was celebrating. Oh, wow, we did it. What an amazing first week. My business partner and I were terrified, even more than before. Because now we have tens of thousands of eyes on this website. And beginning Monday, the following Monday, stuff has to sell. Cars auctions will be completing and stuff will be selling. So this is way more technically complicated than just listing stuff, right? Because there's going to be tons of bids and comments in the final minute, final seconds, and it has to work. And now it doesn't just have to work. It's going to be seen by tens of thousands of people if we screw up. So the second week, I was even more nervous than the first week. Everybody else is out there celebrating. I'm sitting here thinking, this could be really bad if stuff doesn't sell. So I'm working nonstop and I'm terrified, which is quite a combination. So the first auction closes the next Monday and it's my E63 AMG wagon. And I wasn't that scared because it was my car. So if something messed up, I think we had an hour before the next one closed, maybe we could fix it. And you know, if my car didn't sell, whatever, I could sell it somewhere else, I could trade it in. I was the guinea pig, I was happy with that. Now there wasn't a huge bidding war because bidding had already gotten pretty high beforehand. I didn't really expect a huge bidding war at that point. We just got a bid or two and it sold and it worked. And everything kind of worked as planned. So we're starting to kind of breathe a sigh of relief. But now we have the next car coming up in an hour. So that was my friend Perry's Porsche 911. And I don't think it had met its reserve at that point, like an hour beforehand. It was a little short. And I still remember sitting on my patio with my business partner and our one auction writer employee watching the bids come in during the final minute of that auction and literally top of our lungs screaming when the car finally crossed reserve. Just so much excitement, like we did it. And then there was a bidding war, like 3 people were in it. And I was like, oh my God, we've done this. We sold a car. We got a car to its reserve. And there were multiple interested parties, like this is real. And the bidding stopped, the car had sold, and we had done it. And over the next few days, as busy as we were, we all stopped to watch every auction when it closed. And we all screamed when big bids would come in and when reserves were met and when we knew cars would be selling. And I can't even tell you how big it was. Like this fear that nothing would work, this fear that nobody would come, it all started to melt away with each auction that brought the retail price for the car, that brought a bidding war, that brought all these comments. And for me, I still remember the first auction that was really huge. We had a car sell the second or third week, and I had argued with our employee, Kenan, over the reserve. He convinced me to make it higher than I thought it should be, and I thought it should be way lower. And the whole week, I was just making fun of it brutally. Like, I can't believe you made me take this thing. Its reserve's way too high. It's ridiculous. It's gonna be a no sale. Wasted our time. I was just giving him endless crap the whole week about how disastrous this auction was gonna be. And on that day of the auction close, I was filming. And I think the Audi S8. And I remember sitting in the back of the S8. I remember all of that fun I had made of Kenan, thinking about that. And then the auction gets close to reserve. And I'm sitting there, I've stopped filming, I'm watching it. And then it hits reserve. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then there's this bidding war that goes beyond the reserve and keeps going and keeps going. And it goes over and over, and it's minutes now. And I'm just sitting back in this car, like supposed to be filming, basically crying, like, this was it. This was our first huge validation. A major bidding war on this car that I never thought would really sell. Like, this is like an airplane taking off, and this is the moment when the wheels go up. Like, you're flying. You did it. And I remember thinking, like, we have something here. No matter what comes up in the future, there will be problems, there will be issues, stuff will break. We have something here. And Kenan, of course, then made fun of me endlessly. But the point was, a car sold. And it was huge. It was just one of the biggest moments in my career. So that's how it got started. And as you can see, it's done pretty well since. Obviously, it can be a little bumpy, but mostly on the back end, stuff you don't see, where we've had processes in place that we hadn't thought about. We've had to deal with some shady people we didn't know about, but now we do. And we're getting to a point now where we're more sustainable and where, you know, this is a real working website that people check every day that I'm so proud of, and that I no longer have to wake up in the middle of the night terrified about. And so that's the story of Cars and Bids. We have an amazing team of people, and we're growing. We've hired a few more since that first week at my patio. And I mean, I'm starting to see it go from here. I'm starting to see, you know, what's next and what's coming. But since so many of you have asked, that's the story of Cars and Bids, born at a cheesecake factory in San Antonio. and I don't go to cheesecake factories very often, but I just I wanted to do it. And that's where it started. And now, you know, we're getting to a point where it's a real thing. And so anyway, remember to check out my latest market report on the Cars and Bids YouTube channel with all the recent sales and no sales. It's live right now. You can see my thoughts on all of the recent sales, none of which have terrified me quite like those original ones, thankfully. And thanks for watching more Doug DeMuro.